Hi, and welcome back to Reverse Shot. Anybody tired yet? This week was filled with lowlights, highlights, and dark shadows in journalism. Let's start with Dana Bash. Something she said got people upset. But was she wrong? Take a watch and a listen.
Before I let you go, I want to talk about something that happened over the weekend, not in your district, in Columbus. A group of neo-Nazis paraded through that city wearing, waving swastikas, covering their faces. This is not the first time this sort of thing has happened in Ohio in particular, and of course it's continuing to spread. We don't know what side of the aisle this comes from. I mean, typically neo-Nazis are for the far right.
Yeah.
You had protests from the far left at your house.
Correct.
As a Jewish member?
Yeah, they slept outside my house for days. You know, my takeaway is this has got to stop. And the surge of anti-Semitism is global, but it's certainly here in the United States. And it does require leaders on both sides of the aisle to say, don't do that.
Is your party doing that enough?
I think some in my party are doing a ton, and some are silent.
First off, Bash said this after she had already identified the rioters as right-wing and as Nazis, neo-Nazis. And then she said, well, we don't quite know where they're coming from. Well, look, is this a problem? Yeah. Look, if you don't know, then don't put it on TV. You need to verify it. But it was pretty much verified. What she was bowing to is the misinformation and the false information that comes out from people who say that, you know, there are left-wing actors dressing up as neo-Nazis and going across the country. We've heard this for years. I've never been able to document one case of it being true. Maybe you do know of them. If you do, let me know. But the problem is she bowed to that. People got upset with her, and rightly so. But is this a huge sin? No, it's not. The reporting was on target. It was solid. Bash made a slip of the tongue. We all do it. God knows I've done it 3 times today, and we're not even through the intro. Let's talk about the next problem, shall we? And this has to do with Morning Joe. They showed up at Mar-a-Lago to talk to Donald Trump. And here's what they said afterwards.
Over the past week, Joe and I have heard from so many people, from political leaders to regular citizens, deeply dismayed by several of President-elect Trump's cabinet selections, and they are scared. Last Thursday, we expressed our own concerns on this broadcast and even said we would appreciate the opportunity to speak with the president-elect himself. On Friday, we were given the opportunity to do just that. Joe and I went to Mar-a-Lago to meet personally with President-elect Trump. It was the first time we have seen him in 7 years.
Now, we talked about a lot of issues, including abortion, mass deportation, threats of political retribution against political opponents, and media outlets. We talked about that a good bit. And it's going to come as no surprise to anybody who watches this show, has watched it over the past year or over the past decade, that we didn't see eye to eye on a lot of issues, and we told him so.
What we did agree on was to restart communications. My father often spoke with world leaders with whom he and the United States profoundly disagreed. That's a task shared by reporters and commentators alike. We had not spoken to President Trump since March of 2020, other than a personal call Joe made to Trump on the morning after the attempt on his life in Butler, Pennsylvania. In this meeting, President Trump was cheerful, he was upbeat, he seemed interested in finding common ground with Democrats on some of the most divisive issues. And for those asking why we would go speak to the president-elect during such fraught times, especially between us, I guess I would ask back, why wouldn't we?
Now, just like Dana Bash's problem, this went viral. And people got really upset with the fact that they went and kissed the ring of Donald Trump. I don't know what happened in that meeting. Now, I do know what they said, and it is a cause for concern. But with all the crashing ratings, you know why they went there. MSNBC is going up for sale. CNN is talking about massive layoffs. And so they're trying to save their show. Here's what I would have liked to have seen. If you're going to go to Mar-a-Lago, and first of all, you can't fault them for that. If Donald Trump invited me to Mar-a-Lago to talk to me, I'd go. I'd probably let people know when and where I got there, so when I didn't come out, they'd know where to look. But that's another story. The truth of the matter is that reporters always need to reach out. Now, the anchors of Morning Joe aren't reporters. They're talking heads, and we all know that. The confusion comes because we think of them as reporters because they're on a news channel. They're clearly not. And that is a problem. What I would have done if I were there, I would say, listen, we've got access to you. Why don't you make yourself available to the press? Because right now, Donald Trump is all about protecting himself. He's not showing up in the press. I doubt that he'll show up in the Brady briefing room once he's president unless he can guarantee that it's a friendly audience. He needs to make himself available to an unfriendly audience, i.e. me. But I've already been told he'll never sit down and talk with me because of what we went through the first time Donald Trump was in office. Do I need to remind you what that was all about? Yeah, okay, you can take a short look.
Go ahead and see. It's a fake question. Yes, go ahead.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to follow up on that, unifying crime reporting statistics, numbers from your own Border Patrol, numbers from this government show that the amount of illegal immigrants are down. There is not violence on the border. And that
There's
most
not violence on the
there's
border?
not as much violence
Oh, really?
as. Let me,
You had
wait a minute,
26 people
Let me finish the
killed.
question, please. Let me finish the question.
2 weeks
please.
ago, 26 people were killed in a gunfight on the border.
I understand what you're
a
saying.
mile away from where I went.
I was there. I understand. That's not the question. The question is.
Do we forget about that?
No, I'm not forgetting about it. I'm asking you to clarify where you get your numbers because most of the DEA crimes reporting statistics that we see show that drugs are coming across at the ports of entry, that illegal immigration is down, and the violence is down. Okay. So what do you base your facts on?
Come on, let's go.
Secondly...
No, you get one. You get one.
Well, the second
Just
question
sit down.
is...
Wait, sit down. Sit down.
Could you please answer?
Sit down. You get one question.
Yeah, me and Donnie were best buds. What can I tell you? If that guy doesn't get out of it, he didn't like me. Anyway, then let's take a look at what Donald Trump did this week with the Press Act. Okay, he wants to kill it. This headline came out. Donald Trump wants to kill the Press Act. Well, what is the Press Act? 3 times the Congress of the United States has tried to pass legislation that would protect reporters from going to jail for protecting a confidential source. Sound familiar? That's right. I've gone there 4 times. I was one of the ones that was looked at, my case, as a basis for this legislation. 3 times it has passed through the House. And by the way, one time it was co-sponsored, Jamie Raskin and Jim Jordan. The Republicans want this as much as the Democrats. Donald Trump doesn't want us because he wants to jail reporters. Simple fact, can't deny it. That's what's wrong, and it makes for a worse press. All 50 states, most of them, have a shield law, which shields reporters from being hacked, spied upon, or giving up their sources. This would be a national shield law, which would do the same. Ain't going to happen. They're trying to get it passed before Donald Trump gets in office. Now, if you think that's bad, the Huffington Post is reporting that Trump has a plan to cripple government transparency. Now, and that's by blocking the FOIA Act, right? Freedom of Information Act. You file a request, the government gives you the information that's on the public record. It never works out that way. And as much as I'd like to blame Donald Trump for trying to cripple government transparency, and he's not doing it with a FOIA Act. Every president has done this. They limit the amount of budgetary expense to the office that oversees this. They get inundated with requests, sometimes 50, 60,000 at a time, and it takes them forever to get back to us. And sometimes they don't. I've tried to request information on a Michael Cohen case. I'm now 2 years into that, and we still haven't got the information that we need. Donald Trump, this is not representative of a Donald Trump ploy. This is a representative of government destroying free speech. And you want to know why we have problems in the press today? Underlying all of this, our inability to report, the fact that we don't give you numbers. By the way, if you want The Press Act, that guarantees investigative reporting. Otherwise, you have talking heads complaining about going to Mar-a-Lago. You're not going to get good reporting if reporters cannot protect their sources. So what the HuffPost is talking about, this is a poor headline, and it's not indicative of what's going on. You got to give Donald Trump the benefit there. He's not in office yet. He's just going to continue what every other president has done, and that is not honor FOIA requests. Is there any way out of this, I wonder? Well, part of the problem in the press is social media. A lot of the stuff we talk about today, the viral stuff, comes from anonymous posting, bot farms, insults, anger, bad manners. It's kind of like a family reunion gone mad with tainted liquor and bad acid. One guy who wants to try and clean this up and change social media is a comedian and social activist, Hal Sparks. And he joins us to talk about his ideas for legislation to clean up the press.
I want to start out. I got to do it. Got to ask you. You are an observer of everything going on in the world. I'd like to hear your greatest horror stories. What has the media done that's really screwed up over the last few months?
Well, I would say over specifically the last year, one of the things that was starting to, that was consistently worrying me and then got worse when Biden moved over and chose Harris to replace him was this death by 1,000 cuts that had been going on the entire presidencies, of Biden. And then all of a sudden there's a bunch of people with bloody razors in their hands going, I wonder which cut it finished him off. Like they're arguing about what the problem was right the week before the election, and acting like it wasn't the entirety of the presidency where they were talking about inflation and the economy and leaving and refusing to solve for X in the equation, which was the pandemic. Just pretending, just memory holing it and pretending that they weren't doing a masterful job of solving a terrible problem, but that we had, the economic indicators that are giving us this extraordinary circumstance are reminiscent of 1982 and perhaps 2008, and always the party in charge gets blamed. Like, we just came out of a pandemic. The 2008 crisis, 1982, even 1929 were not preceded by a worldwide pandemic that shut down the entire economy. And for some reason, these folks wanted to talk about the equation of the economy without ever solving for that one. Like, what is that missing part of the equation that seems to make it so difficult to and I think that. I mean, that's indicative. It wasn't the only area they were doing it, but that was a big indicator. The other thing, too, is, and the biggest one is I think the one that's making me slap my forehead the most, is the number of people who are, who were shouting Genocide Joe and all that nonsense leading up to this, and are now on the website I guess future known as Blue Sky, because that's where everybody's going, including myself, at halsparks.com if you want to check it out. That they all seem to be claiming about look at who he's choosing for his cabinet. It's like he's not for a two-state solution at all, and I feel like my head's going to explode. I feel like of all those things, like it was all right. The uncommitted thing was always diluted. It was always a Jill Stein election campaign or a Russian bot farmed endeavor. But the depth of ignorance and malfeasance around that particular thing, and the nerve of these people to now come up and go, I don't know, I think Gaza's in big trouble. Like, good Lord, man, there will be no Gaza.
Yeah,
that is now Israeli territory. Yeah. So is the West Bank. Sorry,
and southern Lebanon.
Best thing that. Yep, exactly. Southern Lebanon will become a buffer zone. Any place that was controlled by Hezbollah, Israel has no reason to trust Lebanon will keep it free of those people anymore. And they will, at this point, I don't know why they don't just redo the Six-Day War and take the Sinai.
Well, they might. But back to the media. So basically, you're saying we're arrogant and ignorant.
Yeah, and well, I also would say there's an element of it where it's normal. I'm used to the kind of civilized slow walk in the face of a monster, that's normal. It's something, I don't know how you solve that without turning your media into basically the British media, which it became like evil. I don't. Your response to the Trumps of the world can't be to create a Trump-like media that is just devastating, right? Because that's what they did in the UK, and it still didn't work, right? They just destroyed the lives of average citizens, right? They stole the phones of people killed in terrorist events, and then played their text messages on the air. They displayed their, that kind of stuff. That's it, and like I said, it doesn't work anyways. So I understand the comity of the Senate and the civility of the Congress and all that kind of stuff, which means that more than ever, people like myself who are not afraid to F-bomb their way through this stuff should elbow their way to the front of the line, which is what I'm doing, and sort of stop being the everybody's media side piece. I'm not going to do it. And
well, define that. What do you mean by media side piece? And by the way, before we talk about for those listening and just tuning in, long-time listener, first-time caller, Hal Sparks is with us to talk about his thoughts on the media. So go ahead. What do you mean by media side piece?
I mean that there are some of us where we are the tree that they pick their idea fruit from, or they mine for jokes or ideas. But the ferociousness of the fight that we throw that way is a little untenable, or has been. It goes against that kind of artificial civility or both sides mentality. It is directly in contrast to that. I do not play well with people that want to destroy my own party from the inside. I do not buy into the jargon wars. I do not think it is acceptable that you use symbols on social media as a placeholder for what you really believe and then not live up to that actual thing. That's why I created the hashtag Fogressive idea, because I believe there are a lot of people that allege themselves to be on our side, use all the right words, put the right symbols and emojis in their Twitter bios, but then when it came to it, help Donald Trump get elected, and now are pearl clutching like our dear friend over at Uncommitted, who had no doubt a watermelon slice in every single emoji, every tweet that he put out. Which, for those that don't know, if you do know that lingo of the internet, or you don't, is the closest thing to the colors of the Palestinian flag. So they would use a watermelon slice as red, white, and green in that regard. So if people would use that as if it gives them a pass, and it allows them to move to the front of the line and say, I believe in this more than you do because I have a sticker on my stuff. And I'm not going forward, I'm not going to recommend that people automatically, block or I guess, disavow those people immediately. But I do think they don't get a pass. And here's why. Mike Pillow wears a cross. Mike Pillow, one of the reasons why My Pillow jumped ahead of other, sales people on QVC and on late night infomercial and that kind of stuff, why he automatically got an audience is because he wore a cross in his ads. And there was a huge section of the populace that went, that's very bold. That's my guy. He's not he's not ashamed to wear a cross in public. That's right. And so therefore, I'm going to buy my pillows and stuff from him because he's on my side. It's gangwear. He wore it as gangwear.
So but you're talking. All right. So we're talking media, and now you're talking social media. That's a huge problem. Social media. What I'm trying. When I listen to it.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I wonder. Is shitter, as you call it, now state-run media? Is that? Do you think because he's right in bed with Trump and all of the things that you talk about? That he's virtue signaling. I'm virtuous. I'm Elon. Let's go to. I don't know how they get along because he's for sustainable energy and Donald Trump is drill baby drill. But that's another story. But so we're looking at problems with regular media being arrogant, ignorant, both sidesism, social media, people signal virtuing and telling me they're better than and getting to the head of the line because they put little symbols out there. Man, that's fucked up.
And the media references those people. Those people, like, how they talk about how the right, and this is something they've parlayed into something, and they're not completely wrong about the belief on this, although I think it's very underwater as far as it's worth, is this idea that just by simply being sympathetic to immigrants. The language of being sympathetic to immigrants is a dinner bell to people who want to come into the country illegally, that they're not going to be, they can just do it, that the border is open. Even if you say the border is closed, just by being nice to immigrants or wanting them to be treated like humans, or even talking about being supportive of asylum claims, that in and of itself is like ringing the dinner bell for, for these folks to come. That's what they believe, okay? Right? We're familiar with that concept, okay?
Yes.
There is an absolute parallel to that actually happened, which was in, I want to say maybe it started about 10, 12 years ago, when CNN started posting rando Twitter handles and their responses on screen, like no vetting, no knowing who these people are. I'm surprised we didn't get a bunch of Mike Hunt ones. Considering, I think those are the only ones they skipped over. It was probably right, exactly. Seriously, that they skipped past those, those folks, because they might have been. The irony is there might have been a Mike Hunt out there who actually was a real American who was trying to say something, and he got a bot account, like at that point, not a digital bot, but a sock puppet account. Once you started doing that, once they started unvetted, not clearing who the person is, not saying this is a famous person or this is a well-known news person and this is what they said on their social media, they just started grabbing randos like it's a C-SPAN call-in show and boosting that on the air. That was all Russia and China needed to know. That was all Iran needed to know. That's all the Saudis needed to know, is that what they're saying is, you, by social media, you can bully your way into the actual legacy media. And they won't, they're so slow to this particular boiling water that it'll be, by the time we take over, it's too late. And then they translated that into other media sources, and what these media organizations started reacting to fake accounts and bot accounts and foreign accounts as if they were regular Americans. And anytime they got shouted at by enough of them, their analytics told them that somebody hates this. Now, those analytics don't tell you that those are all digital accounts. There is no human being behind any of them. That doesn't matter. If you get enough thumbs down about something, even if those are you can buy thumbs down on an account if you want. Right. You can, just like you can buy views, and I don't know why this is news to anybody, but most of the big accounts that the right uses, Daily Wire and all those guys, and The Blaze even, they buy views from watch farms in India and China and stuff, which just put walls of phones on these giant shelves, and then it's a person's job to trigger them to watch a video, and then it rewatches it and rewatches it and rewatches it. And there is no indicator in any of your analytics, except maybe by country, and even then they do it through a VPN, so it looks like it's happening in the United States. Right. There's no indicator that says, oh, these probably are bot accounts, you're not getting real watches, or the video you're watching has a lot of artificial views. Be aware that it is, it came up in your feed because they are jacking the algorithm.
And so that brings me, wait a minute, that brings me, and I want to bring this in before we go on anywhere else. That brings me to the legislation that you're interested in introducing in California and New York. Tell us about that.
Okay, so in the name of freedom, Brian, as an American. I would simply, I believe every American should have the right to say whatever they want and read whatever they want and know whatever they want and follow whatever accounts they want, and that's fine. However, I also believe that you should be able to know if it's a real American. That's all. If it's a real account that, or where the country of origin is of the account. Doesn't mean you can weigh that against reality. You can think that everybody in Macedonia cares more about America than Texas if you want to. But knowing that that's where the accounts are coming from would be a valuable resource. So in, getting a piece of this legislation through, we were hoping that we could float it if Harris became president, because it's a logical, sensible piece of legislation. That's out the window. But large states that this matters to, like California and New York, Washington State, also, I think Illinois would be another good partner in this, would clearly be able to pass a piece of legislation that says, if you're going to have an online service that's available and there are accounts, The people should have the right to know whether they're talking to a real person or not. That's all. A bot must be labeled. And the availability should be there to see if someone is in country or out of country. That a domestic account has a different label than a foreign account, because you need to know who you're talking to and what you're talking about. Because if people can hide their identity or come up with it's not their name, it's their moniker online or whatever, and only verified accounts are a way of telling if somebody is sort of who they say they are in some ways, or that, and unfortunately that businesses use that. I don't care if Coca-Cola is verified. That doesn't help me. It might help Coca-Cola to keep them from getting hijacked, right? But it doesn't matter to me. If I know who's an American, who isn't, who's a Canadian, who isn't, that kind of stuff, that helps me in terms of considering the source. And it should be called the CTS bill or something along those lines, like consider the source, so that it's okay to have bots online. They have their function. We will be interacting with chat bots like crazy, especially when you've got lost luggage and the like. Everybody's done it, and it's okay. But we know the difference when we're talking to them online increasingly. We know we can ask to talk to a real person in those situations, and this would give us that same option. Bots, primarily, this should be the start. Bots must be labeled online. If an account on a social media site, which is supposed to be humans interacting, is not a human being, you should have the right to know it. Okay. You can still use it, still talk to it. Might be amazing. I use ChatGPT, I use Copilot, I use Gemini, I use Claude, I use Pi. I have all these different AIs because I have my show Friday AI that I do as part of my morning show. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I do a morning show. Friday, I've started dedicating it over the last year to the rise of AI and robotics and the effect it's going to have on the economy and on people's lives. And I'm trying to get my audience to get ready and to be able to absorb it and use it and adapt with it, because it's going to be on us like a tsunami in about 6 to 10 months, and people are not prepared.
No, they're not.
And it can be. It does not have to be the end of the world. It does not have to be a net negative. As a matter of fact, I believe it will be a net positive. But the adaptive period during which that happens is going to be funky. It's not going to be comfortable. And I want people to be
comfortable. That's
you and I. That's our traveling name for our show. When we funky and comfortable. That's going to be we'll create AI. We're going to do AI generated disco music, and then we're going to perform it live.
Now, since the election, as I said, crashing ratings have been the norm at MSNBC, CNN, and others. Comcast is going to divest itself of MSNBC, and Rachel Maddow has even taken a pay cut to try and save her show. So what's in the offing going forward? Will Warner Brothers and Discovery sell CNN? Will Paramount sell CBS News? Will Disney sell ABC? There are conservative groups out there that would love to buy them all. But what about independent news like we used to have? Well, you want to help me start a GoFundMe fund and I'll buy MSNBC. Just kidding. Maybe, maybe not. Anyway, last thought. The Department of Justice Antitrust Division boss, Jonathan Cantor, say that fast 3 times, recently drove the strategy to defeat Google in court and bust up the search engine monopoly. Great. Woo, hallelujah. Amen. Can I get an amen? You can do better than that. Can I get an amen? Thank you. Look, Google dominated 67% of the market. Now, 6 companies dominate 90% of the news that you see, read, or hear. You want to fix the problems in journalism? Bust up the media monopolies. I'll preach that all day long. Bust up the media monopolies. Bust up the media monopolies. Bust up the media monopolies. And I'll even try to say it 3 times fast. Look, we'll see you next week. Subscribe to our channel because, folks, if you want to hear what's wrong with news and how to fix it, I'm here for it all week long. Thank you very much. This is Reverse Shot.